Thank you. It had been nearly 15 years since I graduated high school. I hadn't kept in touch with most of my classmates, just a few close friends I considered my ride or dies. So I was surprised when I received a friend request on Facebook from someone I barely remembered, Harry Cooper. The name sounded familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. I figured what's the harm in connecting, so I accepted the request and sent a quick message saying it was nice to hear from him after all these years. The next day, I saw a notification that Harry had replied. He said he was so glad I accepted his request and how he hoped we could pick up where we left off. That struck me as odd since we clearly hadn't been that close in high school if I could barely remember him. I checked out his profile and saw he was still living in our hometown, working as an auto mechanic. His page was filled with rants about how much he hated our high school and former classmates. I started feeling uneasy but figured I'd give him the benefit of the doubt. Over the next few weeks, Harry began messaging me more frequently, bringing up petty squabbles and jokes made at his expense back in the day. It turned out we had been in the same friend group, but I was one of the more popular kids while he was an outcast. The more we interacted, the more I realized he still harbored resentment about the old high school social hierarchy. One night, he went on a tirade about Trevor, a guy from our class who used to pick on Harry relentlessly. I tried calming him down, changing the subject, but he was fixated on getting revenge against Trevor. He asked me again and again to help him track down Trevor online until I finally told him I was not comfortable getting involved. After that, the messages stopped for a few days. I figured Harry had moved on when suddenly my phone blew up with notifications one Saturday night. He had gone on a posting rampage, tagging me in old photos and making snarky captions about how superficial I was back then. My stomach sank as I watched comment after comment from new Facebook friends of Harry's taunting and shaming me. These were clearly fake profiles he had created just to bully me. In a panic, I blocked Harry and all the fake accounts I could identify. My hands shook as I scrolled through the barrage of nasty comments on photos I had forgotten were even posted. I felt betrayed and violated that someone I barely knew was trying to ruin my reputation and dredge up the worst of high school. Over the next several weeks, harassment tapered off, but I remained hyper-vigilant, checking settings and blocking any suspicious accounts. I was careful about accepting new friend requests and kept my profile as private as possible. It was exhausting feeling vulnerable and exposed, expecting Harry or one of his aliases to pop up at any moment. I confided in a few close friends who staunchly defended me, reporting the harassing profiles and comments. Their support helped, but I was still shaken that someone could disrupt my life so easily. For a while, I considered deactivating my Facebook account altogether, but knew Harry would see that as a victory. Eventually, the requests and messages stopped completely. I started to regain some sense of normalcy, though the experience had shown the dark side of connecting online. I felt foolish for letting my guard down and trusting someone who clearly harbored ill intent under the guise of an old friend. Moving forward, I vowed to be more cautious and discerning about who I engaged with on social media. I never heard from Harry again, but kept his profile on my block list just in case. The entire ordeal was a stark reminder that the internet can amplify and empower grudges and cruelty unlike anything in the physical world. I didn't want to be paranoid or suspicious, but my eyes were open to how vulnerable we all are to being targeted and manipulated online. At the end of the day, nothing can replace the value of true offline friendships. I was grateful to realize who my real friends were after they had my back through that whole nightmare with Harry. The experience left me warier and a bit more guarded, but also thankful that I had a strong enough support system to get me through. In the weeks following the incident, I found myself much more selective with accepting friend requests and engaging on social media at all. I went through and culled connections that I didn't have an offline relationship with, tightening my privacy settings even further. It was admittedly isolating at first, but I figured real friends would understand my need for increased caution after what happened. I also started openly discussing my experience anytime the topic of social media came up. The more I talked about it, the more I realized how many others had dealt with similar harassment and violations of trust online. My story resonated with friends who had estranged exes resurface or dealt with imposter accounts. Bonding over our collective awareness made me feel less alone and reminded me the problem was endemic, not anything I had brought on myself. While I wished I could reclaim the unguarded openness I once had online, I knew those days were probably gone forever. The harsh reality that you never know who might be lurking behind a seemingly benign friend request had permanently altered my interactions in the digital world. I was less inclined to accept invitations from vague acquaintances, guarded about sharing personal updates and photos, and kept tighter control over who could access my profiles. Perhaps I would slowly regain some of my enthusiasm with time, but my antennae were permanently raised when navigating social media. As much as I wanted to hope for the best in reconnecting with old friends online, the experience with Harry reinforced the hard lesson that trust must be earned and vigilance was key. The virtual world mirrored the real one in terms of guarding yourself against those who mean harm. I tried not to let it make me jaded completely, but maintained the healthy skepticism I wish I had from the start. Looking back now, I can see how it all started out subtly. Just a couple random comments on my Facebook posts saying generic things like cute pic or yum looks delicious. At first, I assumed it was an old friend or two casually commenting on my updates, but the remarks kept coming, even on boring day-to-day statuses. They were always a little too personal, like this person knew specific details about my life. I ignored it at first, thinking it was just someone I hadn't talked to in a long time trying to reconnect. But then they commented on a photo of me hiking near my hometown, a remote trail I hadn't told many people about. They wrote, "Wow, I've always wanted to hike there." How did this person know where this secluded trail was? I barely remembered mentioning it before. Their profile was empty when I checked. No info, no photo. Strange. The intimate remarks continued, referencing my personal life. Remember that green chair you used to read in? On a simple photo of my living room. I looked around and realized they were talking about a childhood armchair I still had. Disturbing they knew this mundane detail about my home decor. Had I posted an old photo that included it, I scrolled back years and found nothing. Thoroughly creeped out, I messaged the profile demanding to know who they were. No response. But the comments persisted, revealing their obscure knowledge of my life. Haven't had your mom's French toast in forever. On a breakfast pic. About time, you deserve it. On a work promotion post. Always said you look great with short hair on a new haircut. It finally hit me. This wasn't some random stranger. They knew my family, friends, past experiences. Things no casual acquaintance would know. This was someone close to me, keeping tabs and watching my every move online. But who? And why were they hiding their true identity? I felt violated, betrayed. I went into social media lockdown, making everything private, limiting who could see my posts. But it was useless. The remarks from this phantom friend kept coming as if they could see everything. I tried a new tactic, deleting old posts and only sharing generic, boring updates about my life. For a few weeks, blissful silence. I thought I had finally lost my creepy stalker. But then the comments resumed on a post about starting a new job, referencing my embarrassing teenage mishap working a cafe. I was dealing with a full-blown online obsessive, someone fixated on me for unknown reasons. I continuously altered settings and blocked them, but like a ghost, they always revived their accounts and found new ways to resurface. Their persistence was bone-chilling. Out of options on Facebook, I turned desperately to the police, but without overt threats or any sense of who it was. They said it didn't qualify as criminal stalking behavior. All I could do was totally lock down all my online presence. But somehow this sinister violator kept piercing my defenses. For a period of time, this continued. I abandoned social media entirely, trying to shake them. But somehow they followed me anywhere I went online. Any shred of personal information I shared was an invitation for their surveillance. I stopped posting anything real about my life, but still couldn't escape the creepy vibe I was being watched by someone with bad intentions. It was like having a one-way mirror in my home, a peeping Tom spine from the shadows. This person had gathered enough personal data on me to fuel their unhealthy obsession forever. The horror finally ended when I went completely offline, shutting down all my accounts. Once I severed my digital ties, the eerie comments ceased. It still took me a long time to stop feeling like eyes were on me, tracking my every move. I learned the hard way that sharing your daily life publicly can feed someone's dark compulsions beyond your control. Now I know better and keep a much lower profile, showing only what I'm comfortable with. Looking back, I'm relieved I stopped at my did before things escalated beyond disturbing messages. I'll never know who this phantom figure really was or why they became so fixated on me. In hindsight, there were red flags from their first innocent remarks that hinted at an excessive interest in my personal details. I was too trusting, thinking it was harmless interactions with online friends. But there are obsessive strangers hiding behind screens, looking for openings into your world. I'm just grateful I caught on relatively quickly and cut off their access before it went any further. Now I'm much more cautious about what I share and who can see it. My days of oversharing online are definitely over, but at least the creepy comments from my cyberstalker are too. The experience definitely left me shaken and paranoid for a long time after. I found myself compulsively checking settings and profiles, analyzing every benign comment for secret meanings. Even though I had gone completely offline, part of me was convinced this phantom was still out there somehow spying on me. Every notification made my heart race, worried they had found yet another way to infiltrate my life. For months, I was hesitant to post even the most mundane life updates, scarred by how seemingly harmless information had fueled this stranger's unhealthy obsession. I kept my social media presence very locked down, with only close family able to view anything. But the trauma of being stalked digitally stayed with me. I had trouble trusting that a post only my sister could see, for example, wouldn't somehow leak out to provide breadcrumbs for my stalker. With time and distance, the anxiety faded, but traces of it still linger today. I'm much more selective in what personal information and photos I share online. Everything is private or heavily restricted to avoid it being accessed and pieced together by strangers. I no longer accept follow requests or friendships from people I don't know well in real life. Interacting casually online now feels like opening myself up to voyeurs looking for details about my private world. My experience has taught me important lessons about online safety and privacy that I try to pass on to others now. I warn friends and family not to accept random contacts and to be very selective in how much access they give to their personal lives. You never know who might be keeping tabs on you from behind a fake profile, gathering data to feed unhealthy fixations. I know firsthand how an innocuous photo or life update can be twisted by the wrong observer. What happened to me also revealed scary realities about the limitations around online harassment protections. Even if someone is clearly obsessed with you and following you persistently, legal definitions make it hard to get help unless they directly threaten you. Virtual interactions blur lines between public and private spaces, allowing for gray areas of stalking. I learned the hard way that once you put information out there, you lose control over who uses it and how. Looking back now, I wish I had been less trusting on social media from the start, but it was a harsh wake-up call about the dark side of internet connectivity, how strangers with bad intentions can take advantage of openness. I'm grateful I caught on quickly enough to go offline before my stalker's obsession escalated beyond inappropriate comments. It pains me to think of how much further it could have gone. Now I know better and keep my digital footprint small and untraceable. The experience was chilling, but at least the phantom's disturbing remarks are finally silenced. It started out subtle at first. I would notice posts on my timeline that didn't sound like something I would share or care about. A funny cat video here, a motivational quote there. Harmless things, really, that could easily be explained away as my account showing me new content based on some algorithm. But then it started getting weirder. My timeline started filling up with posts about bands I'd never heard of, restaurants and cities I'd never visited, and events that clearly never happened. I sat staring at my phone, perplexed at how my account could think any of this reflected my actual interests. As more unfamiliar posts appeared, I began checking the activity log and notifications, trying to piece together what was happening. Nothing seemed to miss. According to the records, I was the only one logging into my account and making these posts. But that couldn't be right. Could it? I changed my password just to be safe, but the odd posts continued. They were becoming more bizarre too, rambling nonsense poems, grainy images with disturbing captions, and vague references to dreams or premonitions. It was like my account had been hijacked by a stranger with a twisted sense of humor. My real friends began reacting with understandable confusion. Some commented asking if I was okay or if someone else had posted this. Others just silently unfollowed me. I couldn't blame them. If I saw this stuff popping up on someone else's timeline, I'd think they had lost their mind. I tried explaining in comments and messages that it wasn't me, that somehow my account was compromised. But with no proof other than my word, people were skeptical. And the hacker kept gleefully posting more absurd and disturbing content, making me look less credible. Soon, close friends I'd had for years started distancing themselves. Inside jokes we once shared now felt tainted. Group chats I'd been part of for ages went silent when I tried to join. all because this sinister stranger had turned my account into a house of horrors I couldn't escape. Finally, in desperation, I contacted Facebook support. After sending screenshots and walking them through the timeline of events, they agreed the account showed signs of being hacked, but they had no insight into how or by whom. All they could do was help me change my password and turn on two-factor authentication. I hoped regaining sole access would be the end of the nightmare. But while the eerie posts ceased, the damage was already done. My real-life connections had eroded. Friends that once considered family now eyed me with suspicion and pity. I tried reaching out to explain what had happened, that I was just as much a victim in this. Some eventually came around and reopened the door to our friendship. Others remained closed off, too creeped out by what they'd seen to give me another chance. In the end, while I got control of my account back, the hacker had succeeded in their twisted social experiment. By skillfully mimicking my voice through unsettling posts, they made me seem unstable, destroying relationships I'd built for years. It was a harsh lesson in just how fragile trust and connection can be online. While I'll never know who hijacked my account or why they targeted me, I'm much more careful about my digital security now. I use strong, unique passwords and two-factor authentication wherever I can. I'm more skeptical about what I see people share online too, remembering even close friends can have their identities stolen. My Facebook account may never feel wholly mine again after what that stranger did with it, but I'm trying to rebuild my corner of this online world, connecting with new friends, sharing meaningful things, and hoping that over time the disturbing false memories will fade. For all the ways technology can drive us apart, I still believe in its power to bring us back together too. I just have to be more vigilant now when venturing into these virtual spaces, ensuring my identity and connections can't be so easily manipulated again. It's frightening how quickly an online profile can be weaponized to sow confusion and distrust when it falls into the wrong hands. But the empathy and forgiveness of flesh and blood friends can triumph over digital deceptions. Though my account was briefly hijacked, I won't forfeit the community Facebook connects me to. I've learned you can't take relationships for granted online or offline. They require continual nurturing and protection from those who would try to pervert them. I'm ready to do that work, rebuilding old bonds and cultivating new ones. One day, I hope the memories of that harrowing hack will fully fade, my real identity shining through on my profile again. But I know glimpses of the past will always remain, reminders of how the truth can be twisted by strangers hiding behind screens. Rather than retreat from the virtual world, though, I'm keeping my eyes wide open as I move forward on Facebook. Checking privacy settings, vetting friend requests, questioning the authenticity of every post, even my own, and reaching out to loved ones to make clear who I really am. My account may never feel fully secure again after being hijacked, but I won't seclude myself behind stronger passwords and taller walls. Connections worth keeping take work, online and off. By continuing to nurture them in both worlds, I believe empathy and truth can overcome even digital deceit. The hacker sought to use my profile to sow distrust, but real relationships are more resilient than that. Friends who know me in real life have seen through the distortions back to the real me. And while scars from the ordeal will linger, love transcends fear when nurtured. So I will keep posting and commenting, liking and sharing, staying engaged with sincerity. My account remains haunted by ghosts of fabrication. But I believe truth and understanding will triumph over those lingering lies in time. Rather than retreating from Facebook, I'm boldly reclaiming the connections it makes possible. My renewed vigilance protects from another hijacking, while my authenticity attracts new friends. The hacker hoped to divide, but instead brought renewed unity. It started out as just another regular day at the office. I was going through my usual morning routine, grabbing a coffee, catching up on emails, chatting with coworkers around the water cooler. But things took a dark turn around mid-morning when I got called into my manager's office. She had a very serious look on her face, and I could tell something was wrong. She told me that one of my colleagues, John, had reported several items missing from his desk overnight. His laptop, external hard drive, and a few other things. Apparently, he thought someone had broken into the office and stolen his belongings. I was shocked and concerned to hear about this theft, but assumed it had nothing to do with me. That's when my manager dropped the bombshell. John was accusing me of being involved. He claimed he saw me lingering around the office late last night on the security cameras. I immediately denied having anything to do with it. I left at my normal time around 6 p.m. There's no way I would steal from a coworker. My manager said she believed me, but had to follow protocol and do a formal investigation. I told her I understood and would cooperate fully. I had nothing to hide, so I wasn't worried about being cleared. She asked me to write up a statement about my whereabouts after work yesterday. I detailed leaving at 6, heading to the gym for my usual workout class, and going home and spending the night watching Netflix. With that alibi, surely this misunderstanding would be resolved quickly. But things only got worse from there. Over the next few days, I started getting mysterious messages on Facebook from accounts I didn't recognize. The messages all accused me of being involved in John's theft. Some of them even claimed I had asked strangers online for tips about stealing office equipment without getting caught. I was horrified by these baseless accusations. Who was sending these messages? It had to be someone trying to frame me. The messages used minor personal details about me, like my gym schedule and taste in movies. Things I had posted on social media. Someone was trying to create a false narrative using my own online presence against me. I immediately went to my manager with printouts of the messages. She agreed this was very suspicious and seemed aimed at manipulating perceptions about my involvement. Resources from the IT department were pulled in to investigate the source of the messages. For the next week, I was a nervous wreck, wondering if police would show up at my door to arrest me at any moment. Thankfully, the IT investigation revealed the messages came from dummy accounts with masked IP addresses. Someone had clearly created them just to harass me. The details about my gym and Netflix habits were easily available on my public Facebook page. It was a malicious attempt to frame me, but the false accounts made the trickery obvious. After a thorough review of the security footage, not a shred of evidence tied me to the scene of the crime. My alibi checked out completely. 2 weeks after John first made the accusation, I was fully cleared, and he formally apologized for making assumptions. It determined the thief most likely used remote access tools to break into the network overnight. The whole ordeal left me shaken. I made all my social media fully private, wary of how my personal information could be used against me. I also couldn't help but feel a twinge of suspicion around John. He had been so quick to blame me, and never seemed to show remorse over his false allegations even after I was cleared. Perhaps there is more to this story than meets the eye. In any case, I'm just glad to have my name fully cleared, but I won't forget this experience anytime soon. It really opened my eyes to how easily perceptions and reputations can be manipulated online. A few fake profiles and social media snippets were almost enough to frame me for a serious crime I didn't commit. Going forward, I'll definitely be more cautious about what details I share publicly. I've removed locations from my posts, kept my friends list small, and switched all accounts to private. At work, I make sure not to leave any personal items unattended. And the next time a colleague has belongings go missing, I'll steer clear of any accusations or gossip. I've also learned just how persistent false online narratives can be, even after the truth comes out. A few of those dummy Facebook accounts still pop up now and then to post misleading comments on my page. I delete them instantly, but it's a hassle staying vigilant. And some people at the office still act wary around me, which is hurtful. On the positive side, this experience helped me realize who my true friends are. Those who stood by me through the accusations and didn't doubt my innocence for a second. It felt good knowing some people could see past all the smoke and mirrors. Their faith in me helped me stay strong until my name was cleared. What I went through was basically a social media horror story come to life. False accusations, online impersonators, fabricated narratives meant to deceive. It could happen to anyone really with how much personal info we all share online nowadays. I learned to be much more guarded with what I post and who I connect with. It started out as just another day scrolling through my Facebook feed. I noticed a new friend request from an account called Wade Smith with a generic profile picture of a sunset. Figuring it was probably just an acquaintance from high school whose name I'd forgotten, I went ahead and accepted the request. Over the next few days, I didn't think much of it. Wade hadn't posted anything on his timeline, and I was busy with work and life. Then one night, I opened Facebook to find a chilling private message waiting in my inbox. "I know your secret," the message from Wade Smith said. "If you don't want me to tell everyone, you'll do exactly as I say." My heart dropped. What secret could he be talking about? I racked my brain but couldn't think of anything incriminating. I lived a pretty straightforward life. Was this some kind of prank? I responded, "I'm sorry. I think you have the wrong person. I don't have any secrets." Wade Smith quickly wrote back, "Oh, really? So you didn't sneak out to meet Chris at the old park last month while telling your husband you were working late?" My jaw dropped. How could Wade know about that? I had met up with an old boyfriend, Chris, just to catch up as friends. It was completely innocent, but I knew my husband would be furious if he found out I'd hid it from him. I pleaded with Wade not to say anything. I told him it was just a minor lapse in judgment and that I would do anything to keep between us. But Wade Smith was merciless. Over the next few days, he messaged me increasingly specific personal details about my life that there was no way he could know unless he'd been spying on me. He described clothing I wore to private appointments and things I'd bought on my credit card. He even referenced conversations I'd had in my own home when no one else was around. It became clear this went beyond an isolated hack or some bit of random online luck. This person had access to my devices and accounts and had managed to infiltrate my personal life in frightening ways. I changed all my passwords, but the messages kept coming, each more chilling than the last. Wade Smith demanded I pay him increasing amounts of money to buy his silence. He told me to get the money however I could, whether by draining my savings, opening credit cards, or even robbing a bank if I had to. The threats became terrifying. He said if I refused, he would send all my private information to my husband, my boss, and post it all over the internet. I was sickened, but also confused. Why me? And who was this person? It had to be someone with advanced hacking skills, but what did they actually want, and why were they tormenting me like this? In a desperate bid, I replied to Wade Smith and tried to reason with him. I explained I'm just a normal person without much money. I pleaded that whoever he was, maybe we could talk through this, but he responded with only more threats and demands. Terrified of what he might do, I deleted my Facebook account, but the nightmare wasn't over. Shortly after, I started receiving disturbing emails referencing things only Wade Smith could know. It became clear social media was just the tip of the iceberg. This went far beyond Facebook. I was alone and unsure of what to do next. I couldn't tell my husband or involve the police without having to admit I'd secretly met up with Chris, and I had no way to pay this anonymous person the money he demanded. I realized I was completely at the mercy of this menacing entity who'd somehow infiltrated the depths of my personal life. Over the coming weeks, I withdrew further into isolation and paranoia. I got rid of my phone and computer, but the emails from unknown addresses continued. This person seemed able to watch my every move, no matter what I did. I became a shell of myself, fearful to leave the house or even talk to loved ones. My friends and family started to worry, asking why I wasn't returning their calls or texts, but I couldn't bear to explain what was happening. I started having nightmares where Wade Smith would show up places from my past, my childhood home, my college dorm room, old jobs. It was like he was lurking around every corner of my memories. I hardly slept anymore, fearful he was watching me even at night. To this day, I still don't know who was behind the Wade Smith account or what they ultimately wanted. Were they trying to extort money, or did they want to destroy my life for some other twisted reason? All I know is they succeeded in taking away my sense of privacy and security, which I'm not sure I'll ever get back. My only solace is that eventually the messages did stop coming as mysteriously as they'd started. I still look over my shoulder everywhere I go, but at least for now the horror seems to be over. I don't think I'll ever look at Facebook or social media the same way again. The paranoia and fear will stay with me forever. It started out as just another regular Tuesday evening. I'd gotten home from work and made myself dinner. After eating, I decided to relax on the couch and scroll through Facebook to catch up on what my friends were up to. As I was browsing my news feed, a notification popped up showing me I had a new message. I clicked on it and saw this from my friend Mo. The message said, "Hey, check out this hilarious video I just saw. You have to see it." There was a link included that supposedly went to the funny video. Now Mo and I go way back. We've been friends since high school. I didn't think twice before clicking on the link in his message, assuming it would take me to a silly YouTube video or a funny meme. However, when I clicked it, I was taken to a website I didn't recognize. Confused, I was about to close the tab when suddenly a pop-up appeared saying my Facebook session had expired and to log back in. Without thinking, I entered my username and password into the pop-up window, assuming I had somehow been logged out. It all looked legitimate. It wasn't until about an hour later when I got a notification that I had been tagged in a post that I realized something wasn't right. I clicked on the notification, but it just led me to a sketchy website. Then I started noticing I was getting strange friend requests from people I didn't know. That's what hit me. By entering my login info into that pop-up, I had given my password to hackers. I immediately jumped on my computer and went to the Facebook website to try and log in. But my password wasn't working. Whoever had gotten access to my account had already changed it, so I couldn't get in. I started freaking out. In a panic, I went through the Facebook password recovery steps, answering security questions and having a password reset link sent to my email. After resetting my password, I was finally able to log back into my account. But what I saw in my access to made my heart drop. The hackers had changed my profile picture to some weird image and were posting bizarre status updates and comments that didn't sound like me at all. Even worse, they were using my account to send messages to all my friends with dubious links, likely trying to hack into their accounts too. I quickly updated my password again, removed the profile picture, and deleted the strange posts and messages. But I knew the damage was already done. Who knows how many of my friends had clicked those links or interacted with my account while it was compromised. I felt mortified and violated knowing strangers had access to my account and were using it to try and scam my friends. Facebook is linked to so much of my personal information, I felt extremely unsafe knowing it had been in the hands of hackers, even just for a short time. Over the next few days, I went into damage control mode. I posted a status explaining my account had been hacked and to please beware of any suspicious links from me. I also messaged my friends individually to see if any of them had fallen for the phishing scam. Thankfully, it seemed no one had entered their info, but many of them admitted the messages had seemed a little strange. They were relieved to hear it wasn't actually me who sent them. I changed my password a few more times that week just to be safe. I also turned on two-factor authentication so only I could access my account going forward. The whole ordeal left me shaken and much more cautious online. I never expected a simple message from a friend could lead to my account being compromised so quickly. It was eye-opening how a momentary lapse in judgment almost enabled hackers to destroy my online identity and privacy. I'm much more wary now of clicking links in messages, even if they seem to be from friends. I never want to go through something like that again. Now I'm constantly reminding my friends and family to be vigilant against potential scams and phishing attempts. I share my story as a cautionary tale whenever the subject comes up. While I'm thankful no lasting harm was done, the situation could have been much worse. Who knows what those hackers were planning had I not regained control of my account when I did. It just goes to show you can never be too careful online. Guard your personal information closely. If something seems even a little suspicious, err on the side of caution rather than blindly clicking. Check and double-check links and sender identities. Never enter your login credentials unless you're 100% certain of the source. My Facebook horror story may have had a happy ending, but I don't ever want to take chances like that again. I learned the hard way to exercise extreme vigilance in order to keep my online presence secure. The internet is full of predators waiting for a moment of weakness. Don't let your guard down. Now, I am constantly updating my privacy settings on Facebook and all my other social media accounts. I went through each profile and made sure my contact info, location data, and other sensitive info was locked down or hidden from public view. You can never be too careful with how much of your personal details are available out there for anyone to access. I also cleaned up my friends lists, going through and removing or blocking any random connections I didn't recognize or hadn't interacted with in years. Having a lot of friends looks nice, but it also leaves you vulnerable if any of those accounts get compromised in the future. Goodbye to those distant acquaintances from the past. In the aftermath of the hack, I found myself feeling uneasy about how much of my information I had willingly made public over the years on Facebook. Things like my job history, relationship details, family members, and photos of vacations. Individually, these data points seem harmless, but together they paint an incredibly intimate portrait that I wasn't comfortable complete strangers having access to. So I went on a deleting spree. Down came any overly personal photos and posts, especially the sappy or embarrassing ones you make when pining for a crush. I removed mention of past job titles and limited my check-ins to only current city instead of specific businesses. Each small reduction in oversharing helped me feel a bit more in control again. The lesson about online privacy really hit home for me after this whole ordeal. I never wanted to feel so exposed and vulnerable again. It's impossible to erase your entire digital footprint, but you can certainly curate and limit the trail you leave, A little forethought goes a long way in keeping your personal information secure. It started out like any other day. I rolled out of bed, grabbed my phone, and mindlessly scrolled through Facebook while having my morning coffee. But when I opened the app, I immediately noticed something wasn't right. There were tons of notifications and friend requests from people I had never heard of before. Confused, I clicked on my profile and felt my stomach drop. This was not my account. Somehow, someone had created a fake Facebook profile using my name, photos, and personal information. At first, I was in denial. How could this happen? My privacy settings were so strict. But as I looked closer at this impersonator's account, I realized they had access to my entire digital life. Every photo of me, posts about my day-to-day activities, details about my family and friends, it was all there. They had meticulously scraped my real account to recreate an exact replica designed to mislead. Panicked, I tried to log into my actual account, but got an error message that my password was incorrect. My mind started racing. Had this hacker changed my password to lock me out? As I desperately tried to regain access, I watched in horror as the imposter continued to post falsehoods and misrepresentations using my identity. They sent messages to my friends and family pretending to be me. The tone and content were just slightly off, and I feared what they might say to end my closest relationships. To make matters worse, they were commenting hurtful language on posts by my connections. My reputation was being tarnished by the second. Frantic, I reported the fake account to Facebook for impersonation and harassment, but the process was slow. For each post and message I asked them to remove, two more popped up. This sick person was actively monitoring the account and seemed determined to inflict maximum damage. Over the next few days, I dealt with the fallout. So many people had seen posts or messages from the account pretending to be me. Even though most knew better than to think I would say such outrageous things, it was still embarrassing and uncomfortable to have my identity misused this way. I had to personally call and message each person who interacted with a fake account. I explained the impersonation situation and asked that they block the account immediately. Most understood and were sympathetic, but the impersonator's harmful posts still cast doubt in some people's minds. A few friends said they needed time before speaking to me again. The scariest part was thinking about what could have happened if I hadn't caught this right away. The stalker had access to so much personal information they could have used to destroy my life. I shuddered imagining them messaging my boss, significant other, or even showing up at my house given what they knew about my address and schedule. It took over a week of constantly reporting each new post before Facebook finally removed the account. Even then, I worried this creep had backups of my data to pull the same sick stunt again. I was on edge for months, paranoid that my identity would once more be stolen. I tightened every privacy setting to restrict anything from being publicly visible, but the damage was done. My sense of security in my own identity was shattered. And now I had every friend request with skepticism, no longer trusting the supposedly safe spaces of social media. This horrific invasion of privacy would leave scars on my psyche for a long time to come. In the weeks following the ordeal, I found myself obsessing over how this could have happened in the first place. My password was strong, my two-factor authentication was on. I ran antivirus scans that found no keyloggers or other malware. So how did this monster get access in the first place? The security expert in me needed to unravel this mystery. If I couldn't understand the security flaw, how could I prevent it from happening again? I started retracing my digital steps, looking for any lapse in vigilance. Finally, I realized it must have been that quiz. About a month before the hack, I had mindlessly taken one of those "Which Disney character are you?" quizzes that get shared around. In my haste for some social media distraction, I must have authorized it to access my profile data without realizing. That was the only app I had authorized recently, and the timing lined up. My heart sank thinking about how careless that one slip-up had been and how much damage it enabled. I should have known better than to hand over my privacy so freely, no matter how innocuous the quiz seemed. It was a hard lesson about guarding my data and identity in an age where hacking was rampant. In the end, I was lucky. The situation could have been much worse if I hadn't caught it quickly, but it fundamentally changed how I interact online. I no longer share personal details openly, even with friends. Any app access is scrutinized. My social media use is dialed back severely as I now view it as a vulnerability. I mourn the loss of that carefree attitude online, but I know my vigilance is what protects me from even greater harm. While the intense breach of security initially left me feeling powerless and violated, I've taken back control where I can. My accounts have been fortified to the highest security settings. I monitor my digital identity obsessively, and I'm careful to minimize oversharing details that could expose me in the future. I may never regain the comfortable innocence I once had online, but through caution and awareness, I now have the tools to guard against such a horrific invasion from happening again. This traumatic experience shaped me into a much more careful and skeptical internet user. I now understand the power of even a small lapse in judgment when it comes to protecting my personal data. It was a hard lesson, but one that prepared me to better face the realities of our complex digital age. I only wish I could have learned it through education rather than such a brutal breach of my privacy and sense of self. But all I can do now is remain vigilant and hope my caution can serve as a warning to others who still take the anonymity of social media for granted. It started out like any other day. I grabbed my phone to scroll through Facebook and catch up on what my friends were up to. But when I opened the app, something was wrong. It didn't automatically log me in like usual. Confused, I entered my password only to get an error message saying it was incorrect. I tried a few more times, double checking that I was typing it right. Still nothing. My heart started racing. How could I have forgotten my own password? I tried resetting it, but none of my security questions seemed to work either. Now I was locked out with no way back in. Frustrated, I switched over to Instagram to vent about it in my stories. But Instagram wouldn't let me log in there either. The same thing happened when I tried Twitter and even LinkedIn. All my accounts were suddenly inaccessible. Panic set in as I realized I was completely locked out of all my social media. Years of photos, conversations, connections, all gone. How was this possible? As I pondered how I could have been hacked, a new notification popped up on my phone. It was a Facebook message request from someone I didn't know. I tapped on it cautiously. The message simply said, "I have control over your account now." My hands started shaking. Who was this person and how did they get access? They sent another message demanding $500 to restore my access. I felt sick to my stomach. Desperate, I reported the messages to Facebook, explaining my account had been hacked, but with no way to log in, I had no control. This anonymous person could do whatever they wanted, post embarrassing photos, message my friends, access private information, and now they were resorting to blackmail. I decided I had to take more drastic action. I looked up Facebook's customer service number and called right away. After verifying my identity, I spoke to someone who assured me they would investigate and work to regain access to my account, but they said it could take some time. For the next few anxious days, I watched helplessly as this stranger continued to post bizarre statuses and comment random things from my account. My friends started texting me, confused and concerned about the weird activity. I felt powerless. Finally, after what felt like forever, Facebook got back to me. They informed me that my account had likely been compromised due to a third-party app I connected to Facebook. By granting certain permissions, it gave a hacker a gateway in. They offered reassurances that they revoked the app access and secured my account. When I logged back in, I was horrified by what I found. My profile picture had been changed to something vulgar. My feed was filled with content I would never share, and messages had been sent to my friends with suspicious links. My reputation was tarnished. I immediately went on a deleting spree, removing traces of what this attacker had done. I warned my friends not to open any links from my account, and I scored my settings, removing any unfamiliar connected apps. While I was relieved to have my account back, I knew the damage was done. I felt exposed and violated after this horrific hacking ordeal. It served as a stark warning about being careful which apps you connect to social media. I never wanted to go through something like this again. From then on, I was hyper vigilant about my account security. Something that was once mindless fun now felt tainted. My relationship with social media would never be the same. In the following days, I found myself constantly checking my privacy settings and logging activity. I removed any app access I didn't absolutely need, and I enabled two-factor authentication for extra security. But I still didn't feel safe. Every time I logged into Facebook, my heart would race wondering if I'd be locked out again. I was jittery sharing any personal information, afraid it would be compromised, and seeing messages from friends provoked anxiety, making me wonder if they were really from who they said. Slowly, I withdrew from actively posting and interacting. I went from scrolling for hours each day to just quickly checking notifications. I felt like I was constantly looking over my shoulder, concerned my account wasn't truly secure. My feed started to feel hollow and performative. Photos of vacations and happy families just reminded me that nothing online was as it seemed. Underneath those smiling profile pics were vulnerable data and identities, one hack away from disaster. Even birthday greetings seemed duplicitous. How many of those people actually cared versus reflexively commended out of social obligation? I grew cynical and distrustful, resentful of the false sense of community social media cultivated. Every time an app or game invited me to connect with Facebook, I recoiled. The whole platform felt contaminated, transparently prioritizing data gathering and ads over authentic connection. Why was I even still using it? Deactivating my account entirely did briefly cross my mind, but so much of my social life was tied up on Facebook. Events were organized there, old friends reconnected through it, photos memorialized key moments. Walking away completely would be difficult, if not impossible. So my feed turned into a hollowed-out shell, a fraction of what it once was. I tightened down privacy settings to limit what anyone could see. I deleted old posts, mortified by my prior oversharing. The account became simply a utility rather than a place of community. In many ways, the hacker invading my space made me realize just how much of my data I had relinquished to Facebook over the years. Personal details, private conversations, my digital life was all controlled by a platform that could be compromised at any time. While I knew deleting Facebook entirely was not realistic, I vowed to no longer blindly trust it or surrender personal information to it. I would stick to surface-level interactions and refrain from emotional posts or revelations about my life. The carefree Facebooking days of my past were gone. My horror story proved that at the end of the day, these accounts are not really ours. The page may display our pictures and thoughts, but the platform owns everything behind the scenes. We're just temporarily renting a space that can be snatched away at any moment. While initially devastating, this hard lesson provided an opportunity for growth. I reassessed my relationship not just with Facebook, but social media at large. Who was I truly connecting with and why? What value did it provide my life? Did the risks outweigh the benefits? Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.